Hello, everybody, and welcome to our fifth episode of Divinely Human, a weekly show. Well, not so weekly anymore because I'm terrible at finding guests. In which we talk to interesting people, which ends up being just anybody that is willing to sit down here with me. And today I was lucky enough to have our friend Max here, who's a fellow streamer. Okay, Max. As a matter of fact, yeah, you might have not noticed at the beginning of this video, but I'm a bit flattered because. We've been talking for 30 minutes, but I didn't realize that he have his audio on. So now Pete Tony just got here and let us know. So that was very graceful of him. And so we were talking here. We've had a great time so far, and we kind of missed it. I was terrible about setting this up, and then we missed the recording. But just to give you an overview, we've been talking about Chesterton a little bit, which is an author that we both appreciate, both in his work in apologetics and how he subtly exposes the Catholic and the Christian lifestyle through fiction, through the stories of Father Brown. And we kind of compare that to other ways in which people try to maybe put it too much into other people's faces. And then we were evolving the conversation towards like video games and stuff. But before we get back into this lovely conversation that I messed up, I want to give Max an opportunity to introduce himself and to say a few words.
Yeah, hi, my name is Kamaxaman K, as Cordero did go over for me. I do go ahead and stream. I try to go ahead and incorporate faith with my streaming. Some of my hobbies are biking, video games, reading, and I do also like to go ahead and play the Pokemon trading card game. I'm trying to figure out how to go ahead and evangelize through that, and it's something that I'm still currently working on, and still in the process of figuring that out.
Yeah, going back to kind of like tie it all up a little bit because we were talking about how in Medium, like in books and things like that, how the fiction that authors like Tolkien compared to C.S. Lewis or compared to Chesterton, they have a different approach to it, and how Tolkien has become out of the three, you could say the most successful, but even beyond like what is success or not, but the idea that somebody can read Lord of the Rings and not necessarily notice if they're not looking for it the message that is already in there. So it gives an opportunity for people to explore that ideology, that lifestyle, that way of seeing the world without it being imposed, without having your guard up. And then when we see that in video games, it's even much more apparent. It's like in video games or in movies in which the big bad movies about bad video games about Christ. So we were just talking about how we falling in love with video games, right? And Max, if you want to kind of express again, like how you got into video games and your experience at the beginning, because it was very similar to how it was for me in my childhood. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. I got a Game Boy back when I was in first grade, Game Boy Pocket for Christmas. For my aunt, it was meant to only be played over car rides. The two games that I pretty sure I got first were Dr. Mario and a Star Trek game for Game Boy. I later convinced my parents because I think they said they'd be willing to give me two games for Christmas in addition. So I got Super Mario Land as well as Game & Watch Gallery #1, and that was just how it went for a while because as I said, my dad did want that to go ahead and for the most part be for car rides only. At the daycare I was at for where I lived there, they did have a Genesis, and I remember specifically Quackshot and Dynamite Headdy being the two games that I really liked for Genesis. And I did enjoy Sega, but I've definitely been more of a Nintendo guy throughout my life. I do have, I think you can see the Genesis games behind me. Maybe, I don't know, but oh yeah, they're over there. So I do have a wide arrangement, but more importantly, aside from that, after I moved in second grade, I did go ahead and find other people that I found other friends, I should say, once I moved, and we did go ahead and they would have me over to their house and I would play video games there, and I enjoyed the camaraderie, and I probably did also admittedly enjoy the fact that I could go ahead and play on more than just the Game Boy, because I did like my Game Boy, and the Game Boy Advance might be my favorite console of all time, honestly.
Oh yeah.
But it is, yeah. There's a lot of games on it.
The SP one, or just
ooh, I didn't have the SP growing up. My wife did.
I did
so it's
too,
like
yeah.
I'm more used. I'm more used to just the original purple Game Boy Advance.
Got it.
So it's like
it's interesting. That's the one that I skipped. I had the black and white Game Boy. That was like the first one that I had. I remember it was like a Jurassic Park video game. It's so funny that it's like how we remember things that are not necessarily the best, but just because they were like the newest or the freshest to us. It's
Right.
like, so it was that one, and then it was a Star Wars game, and they both were like not that good. The main thing I remember was like running away from this Triceratops in the Jurassic Park one, but it's like it wasn't
Okay.
like great quality or anything. But then I didn't have the advance. But then we convinced my father. Okay, it was also like an uphill battle, like it seems like it was
Right.
with your family as well. It's like a
Yes.
convincing them. So my father eventually got us the DSP that we shared, and then a Nintendo DS, and then I wanted a
Yeah.
light, and eventually I got the light to it. But like, but I never
Yeah.
had. It's funny that you bring up the GameCube because I never had it, and I remember I didn't even know about it. So like what a GameCube was or anything like that, because all
Right.
I had up to that point were like portable, and like it's not like I was reading
Right.
like magazines yet. Then later I got into that. But when I saw, I was like, "What is that?" It's like when I got to my friend's house, and then I was just playing with him for hours because it was like such a, and I was like, it was this cube, it's just like a GameCube, and it was so, I don't know, it just
Right.
struck me. Like I remember more the console itself than the video games that we played on it because it really struck me.
I could understand that because it's like if I hadn't had my friends, I probably wouldn't have known about these other consoles either. Honestly,
Hmm.
just since, as I said, I went over to their house and somehow I was able to convince my parents to let me go ahead and get Nintendo Power, which was a magazine throughout like
Ah.
the '80s through mid 2000s. And so I don't know how I convinced them. Probably because I was probably able to convince them because it was reading. So it's like,
Right. Technically, exactly. He's using words.
technically it's reading. It's about video games, but it is reading. Um, so I definitely remember that, and that was how I did stay up to date and learn about new games. Honestly, I remember that for sure because it's like, and then for the GameCube, actually, I know I said I got the GameCube, which is true,
Uh-huh.
but I had to go ahead and like every Christmas, the aunt that gave me the Game Boy would typically give me more games.
Okay.
I definitely remember that. I eventually was able to trade one of those friends a bunch of Game Boy Advance games in order to get the GameCube because my dad was never going to go ahead and get me that otherwise. So
Right. Yeah. I think was there also like an evolution in your relationship with games? Because to me, I remember there was like a big shift from kind of that playing in a camaraderie or whatever. Like I don't know how to pronounce that word
mhm.
correctly, but like when I was, I remember playing Mario Kart with friends like in at school, or like even just playing, like it was more of like a toy. Like there was a point in which the transition from being a toy to being an experience, at least for me. And for me it was a friend of our family got us the Lord of the Rings. There was like a Lord of the Rings game, and then she got us
Right,
like this joystick to play with it. And it was like the first time
right.
and it was for the computer. And it was the first time I was playing a game, and it wasn't like I didn't want to go back to the game as a toy, you know what I'm saying? Just something to kind of play with, and it just had like a feedback to it, and it was just like a fun time. It became at that point more of like, oh, there's a story that I'm following. There's a character that I'm controlling and I'm unlocking. And I'm not saying it gotta be the same for you, but throughout your relationship with
Right.
video games, do you recognize moments in which, like pivotal moments in which you kind of saw video games in a different way?
I could see that actually now that you're saying that. I think I'd have to look up when they were released.
Right. Okay.
But I would imagine honestly it was probably the Game Boy Advance where it did go ahead and turn over from game to
Hmm.
something more serious of a hobby because I like RPGs are probably my favorite genre.
Same.
And just being able to go ahead and play a video game and get a really good story out of it is when that probably
Yeah.
did go ahead and happen to help out a lot with that. And as I said, the Game Boy Advance is my favorite, and it does help that a lot of the games on the Game Boy Advance are just ports of Super Nintendo games. So a
Hmm.
lot of the RPGs that were there for the Super Nintendo, I got to play, or even some new ones because it's like Golden Sun: The Lost Age is still in my top 10 games.
Oh, I
I
gotta
like
check
that
it
one a
out.
lot, but yeah, I like it a lot. So if you have a Switch, you can play it. But I would probably say the first game, and I think it would probably be Final Fantasy One. And the story
Hmm.
for Final Fantasy One isn't anything amazing, honestly. But
But at that
it
point, it
is
was. Right?
at that point, and it definitely made me go ahead and want to play Final Fantasy Two, because for the Game Boy Advance release, it was a combo pack, so you got one and two
Okay.
on the same cartridge, which was nice. And then two story actually does happen to go ahead and step it up a bit, and that might be what did go ahead and start pushing me further because Final Fantasy two story is basically the plot to Star Wars, but set in the Middle Ages. So
Oh wow, that sounds really cool actually.
yeah, honestly, Final Fantasy two is a game I really like. It's typically slept upon,
Mhm.
because the leveling is really weird compared to other games, and I
Okay.
don't deny that.
What? How is it weird? Because I mean, before, because I want to get a little bit more Final Fantasy, because I find that
Sure.
the saga in general, like the series of video game, very fascinating, but I completely missed it. Like in the sense, like the
Yeah.
first Final Fantasy game I ever played was Final Fantasy 15. Like that
Sure.
was,
Okay. And
which
15.
is
Yeah.
which is
15's.
wild, because I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I'm not saying I didn't. Like I like the story and all, and like people criticize and
Right.
such. But what I'm trying to say with this is that like I know about Final Fantasy. For example, the first time I heard about Final Fantasy was through my brother, because he had the soundtrack, because he really liked the music for it.
Okay.
But he had never played the game.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
a friend of his
Right.
had the game. So all I knew about Final Fantasy was Final Fantasy 7 had a great soundtrack. And then I knew it was this
Yeah.
Japanese game, and I didn't ever like go into it. But then when I played Final Fantasy 15, and I kind of like, I was like, oh, this is a great game. It has like so much
Right.
depth, but it's like very rich and very kind of slow burn. And then I'm like, what is up with the other games before? And then like the fact that this is 15,
Sure.
so there's all the other ones. And then I'm
Right.
very interested in playing 16, and I'm right now playing the 7, the remake, and I'm really enjoying it,
Okay.
and I'm really appreciating it a lot. But I'm also like, it's almost like there's no like I'm conscious that there's no way for me to kind of go back and experience what it would have been to
Right.
play those games. But so I'm kind of, I guess you
When
could
they're
call
new.
it
Yeah.
jealous. So from your experience, well, first of all, I guess as a qualifying question, how many games of the
Sure.
Final Fantasy have you played, or from
Have I played? Have I beat or have I played?
played? I mean,
Okay.
I'll take what I can
Let's
get.
see. That's
Because
fair.
I want to hear.
I've played and beat Final Fantasy 1 through 7.
Oh wow,
I've
that's more
yeah.
than I can ask for. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. I've started 8 and 9.
Okay.
I've almost finished Final Fantasy 10 with my wife. 10 is
Okay.
one of my wife's. It's probably my wife's favorite Final Fantasy game, so I need to go ahead and actually finish that with her now. I've played 13 now. I actually did that just last summer, or not just last year, I should say, because typically every other year, just because of the sheer amount of Square Enix games, and that's who makes Final Fantasy,
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and do a year squared because I'd like to get through all of them at some point. So typically, I go ahead and try to just do Square Enix games for the year. But I played Final Fantasy 14, and Final Fantasy 14 is a game that I really enjoy, honestly. So it's it's one of the 2 MMOs that they've done.
Oh, gotcha.
But I find it quite enjoyable. I will say the main problem with Final Fantasy 14 is the first story for it is very bland. It's boring. There's a reason for that, though. When Final Fantasy 14 first came out, it was actually a different story. It did so poorly, they shut the servers down for 2 years and exploded the world, and runs off that story. So they went ahead and made it. When they brought it back, they made the new story as cookie cutter as possible to make sure people played it, and it worked. So the only downside is you have to now play through that really bland cookie cutter stuff to get to the better stuff, and I can understand why people would not like that, because it's like, oh yeah, sure, just get through this one thing and it's great. It's like, okay, listen, I get why that sounds really lame, but it's like sometimes that does happen. A book series that I really enjoy, called the Dresden Files. The first book in particular it's you can tell he wrote it in college, is how we'll put that. The second book steps up, and then the third book, up until book 15, really gets better. Book 16 and 17, we won't get into the reason why I don't like them currently. Maybe we could talk about that later, but that's for later. I'm currently waiting for him to release book 18 to see where the series goes. Anyways, sorry.
Wait. So the Final Fantasy video games are based on books? Or am I missing a part here?
No, so the book,
okay.
the book series I was talking about. Sorry,
okay.
The book series has 17 books. He's currently working on book number 18.
Got it.
That's on me. I apologize. Unrelated. I was gonna say, going back to Final Fantasy. Honestly, for the most part, I really like most of the games. Final Fantasy 1 through 6 are really solid. 7 and 13 are probably my least favorite in the series, but I would say they're not bad. 7 used to be one that I just did not like at all, but now that I've actually played through it, there is a lot of redeeming qualities to it, and I do like it. The main reason now I probably don't like 7 is the plot for 7. All right, so one of my favorite video games, Xenogears, that was originally submitted as the plot for Final Fantasy 7. It was deemed too dark for it, but you can go ahead and see how they went ahead and copied a lot of the plot points from Xenogears in Final Fantasy 7, but did it worse. And that's why it's like, okay. Yeah, I mean, I get why they did it. Xenogears is a lot darker. I can't really blame them for that one. So
Interesting.
It's like,
Yeah,
all
no,
right,
I
fair
didn't know
enough.
that. And it's
Yeah,
like it's interesting to hear this perspective of somebody that really knows the game in and out. Because it's like, yeah, that's not. I suppose that's not a very common perspective. Because people usually, I mean, what I hear for Final Fantasy, like Final Fantasy VII. I recently saw like
yeah,
a ranking, and it's like it was like a guy ranking them, and then kind of comparing to how his community had ranked them. And like Final Fantasy was like top three, and then it was like Final Fantasy
yeah,
three was up there, and it's like so it's like interesting to me to hear because it's like if you haven't experienced it, if you're not in depth with it, you cannot have the nuances that you have, for example, to know about Xenogears
right.
and like what the story comes up. And it's like that also kind of qualifies your experience of it because you were conscious that this could have been something else, right? That this could have had
Yeah.
the richness of Xenogears. Yeah. So let me ask you too, because and now I recall too, because I wasn't accurate enough earlier. The first actually experience playing Final Fantasy was through Final Fantasy Dissidia. You know the PSP game that they made.
Oh, the fighting game. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so that's the
I do know.
first time. So it's almost like I jumped into this pool of characters, right? And I didn't know none of their
Right.
stories, but they were all so rich and so interesting. Like
Yeah.
I don't know which one is the one that is like a blonde kid. Like what game is that? It's a blonde kid and he's like in an underwater city or something like that. Is that 10?
Oh, Titus. That's
Titus,
10.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's
Titus.
10.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So
yeah.
I
I know.
love
So,
that
yeah.
character. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Sorry, I was just gonna say. So this is just a funny thing that I like to bring up. The creator of Final Fantasy X, like the developer,
Uh-huh.
says his name is Titus, but the entire game takes place. The entire game takes place around an ocean. I'm sorry, no, it's Titus.
It's
It goes
Titus.
ahead and plays into the theme of oceans. I'm sorry, you're wrong. Anyways, that's just the funny thing that I like to bring up because it's like the entire thing is oceans, so it's like no, tide makes way more sense.
Yeah, I
Go
mean, it
ahead,
sounds to me
sorry.
like Titus, but you know, so it's like that was kind of yeah, that's kind of when I first started to become intrigued. 'Cause I'm like, these characters are like very
Yeah,
interesting, but I didn't know anything about them. Like, what's that? There's another
yeah.
guy too that I don't know if it's a villain in the games. It's like a guy like it's like a very like fire related. Has like a big square sword. Uh, hmm. Well, whatever. I'm not gonna go into searching and stuff. But yeah, so
That's fair.
it's like this, and then Sephiroth, for example. I was like, this is a really cool
Right.
character with his katana and stuff.
Yeah.
But I didn't know. And then I'm like, oh, it comes to Final Fantasy VII, but I didn't know anything about it or Cloud or and things
Right.
like that. And then there's the aspect of Kingdom Hearts, which is another game that is kind of
Oh
like it
yeah.
really took me by
Oh yeah.
surprise. I played but again, I one that I was late to in that sense. I would have like I never played Kingdom
Right.
Hearts 1 and I played Kingdom Hearts 2 vaguely, like at a friend's house and stuff. And I really enjoyed
Right.
it, but I didn't get to. And then I played the PSP one, which was
Right.
I don't know exactly what the name of it was.
Uh, it might be a Vita one because there was some DS games for Kingdom Hearts.
Oh,
There
maybe
was Chain of Memories.
I don't recall having the
Go ahead,
Vita,
sorry.
so it's like I'm like anyway. I think I anyway
I'm
it was
trying
like
to
a portable
it's
thing.
hard. It's like
Yeah,
there is so many Kingdom Hearts games
yeah,
that
yeah.
it's easy to lose track of because it's like there was a Game Boy Advance one, there was
Ah.
two DS ones, 358 divided by 2 days and recoded. Then
These
then
names.
there was there yeah the names are crazy and it's like eh, it's hard to keep track of it all because I've only played Kingdom Hearts 1, Kingdom Hearts 2, and Chain of Memories currently. I've started Kingdom Hearts 3, but it's like if you want to go ahead and get the complete story, it's just the sheer amount of insanity. I
Yeah.
kind of prefer the story of Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2. It's
Mm.
simple enough. It doesn't require you to go ahead and jump through all these hoops.
Yeah,
And
Kingdom Hearts
it's
3, I loved it. Like whenever I was like my favorite game, like ever, I guess I mean
yeah,
I do taunt that a lot when I play a game and I get really enthralled. But I still think it's like a
yeah,
great experience. But I agree with what you're saying
yeah,
in some sense. Like I was like lost a bit in the story. I was like, what's
yeah,
going on here? And then the ending was a bit like underwhelming. I'm not gonna lie. I was like,
yeah.
what is all this with the kids? But yeah, but it's the gameplay that is so good and the mixing of these characters, like the Disney with the like the richness of
Yeah.
both worlds is just like amazing and just yeah it was just such a blast of a game and I really
It
liked
is.
it but sorry go ahead.
I think Kingdom Hearts 3 does get a little overlooked, honestly.
Mm,
I do think it's the weakest in the series, admittedly, but I
okay.
think people do go ahead and give it too much grief.
Mm,
My main I have two main problems with it actually. It
okay,
kind of plays itself, so it's pretty easy. The other problem
yeah
is
it is,
there's
yeah
really
it's
no
not a
Final
challenge.
there's really no Final Fantasy characters in Kingdom Hearts 3. Not
Yeah,
until the
no, I
DLC.
know that's a good point. It is a
Yeah,
lot of Disney
yeah,
things. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
It's Disney and Kingdom Hearts characters like, but where's my Final Fantasy?
Yeah, exactly. So that's why for me it was
Yeah.
much more approachable in that sense because I was like, oh,
Which
I
is
love
true.
how they like
Which is
they're making Disney cool. You know what I'm saying? That's I mean, not that Disney
yeah,
wasn't cool,
yeah,
but I'm saying like they're making Disney
right,
like I guess fun to play. They're making it into a cool video
right,
game,
yeah.
and I
I understand.
really
Yeah.
enjoy that. But again, yeah, that's why I'm like now that I'm really discovering that because the thing that I experienced with, for example, Final Fantasy 15, which to be honest surprised me, and now that I'm learning to appreciate about this like longer format, like Japanese type of
Hmm.
RPGs, it's kind of like it's like this slow burn that
Pardon me.
then
Sorry.
kind of climb if it's done well, it climaxes into a very strong
Yeah.
like ending. Like with Final Fantasy 15, I started, I'm like, oh, this was amazing, you know, the combat is
Hmm.
great. But then it kind of gets to a point, and I don't know if this is just because 15 specifically, I assume it's being not the best in the series. If I had another one, it would be different. But it's like it got to a point in which I'm just kind of getting through it, but it never feels like an Assassin's Creed Odyssey or something, in which I'm just doing tasks. It's just like it
Oh,
felt
gotcha.
like
Yeah.
things were progressing, but it felt like okay, is this just gonna now kind of fade into the distance and then I'm done with the game? But
Right.
then it just kind of goes up and climaxes into a
Oh,
great
gotcha.
ending. So then I'm like,
Right.
oh wow, this is what the point of a game like this is, that you get to it
Yeah.
in a long way, and the evolution of the character, which is what I like about
Yeah.
RPGs as well, that you are changing with the character and evolving with it. And in that sense, would you say the Final Fantasy is your favorite RPG style? I guess even it doesn't have to be, or like JRPG.
Ooh.
Well, that's not a JRPG really though.
Yeah, Final
That's
Fantasy is a JRPG, but there's
well, in the
different
sense that it's
types because it's like
Japanese, but it's not. It wouldn't be. I mean, I guess it
yeah,
was in the turn-based. Right. Never mind. Yeah. Yeah. I see what you mean.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it depends on which Final Fantasy.
Right.
Just
Right.
before
Right.
I forget, going back to Christ allegories, I need to look
Mm.
more into this. Apparently, one of my friends who is also Catholic and loves Final
Mm-hmm.
Fantasy, her name is Interceptors My Dog Productions, typically shorted as IIMD Productions, has a video about how Final Fantasy 15 is
Ah.
a Christ story, and I need to go ahead and look more into that. She is a wonderful woman.
I
So
would
it's
love
like
to check
she
that
if
out.
you want to talk Final Fantasy, she will talk Final Fantasy with you. Uh,
Nice.
but 15 is definitely one of the games that I do want to go ahead and play more of because I haven't finished it yet. I've been meaning
Yeah.
to.
It's like it has
Um,
that, but it's like to me was the like it really made everything. Because if it wasn't for the ending, and like because it's like, and I see how you could like how there can be a depth to it that is related to Christianity.
right.
Because like these two people playing the chess and the evil playing versus
Yeah.
the righteous, but it all kind of being in like a parallel but embedded um realm and stuff. But yeah, it's like
Yeah.
if it wasn't for that, the game would be so much worse. Again, the fact that they in my opinion they did hit the nail in the head with the ending, it makes the whole experience kind of it not even just worth it. It kind of makes sense why the experience was like that kind of slow burn and like a bit of a
Yeah.
of an uphill. But yeah,
Which makes sense.
so yeah, in that, so then would you say Final Fantasy is the one for you, or do you have any other ones that you like in terms in the RPG genre?
There's a couple RPGs I like. Square is probably the RPG
Square.
that I will just. What was that? Sorry.
You said the name Square?
Yeah, so Square Enix is the one that makes Final
Oh, Square
Fantasy. They've
Enix.
done a
Oh,
bunch
okay,
of
okay,
other
okay. My bad, my bad,
RPGs.
my bad.
Sorry. They probably are the company that I will go ahead and play the most RPGs for. Is it my favorite RPG, though? That's a good question. Let me see. So I have a top 50 game list, and I'm
Oh,
going to
nice.
pull that
Oh,
up real
I would
quickly.
love to dive
Just
into
because.
that a little bit.
Yeah, because it's like, now that you're saying that, it's like, oh, I need to go ahead and
Yeah. Check your
talk about
resources.
that. But it's like, check my resources. But while we're waiting for me to actually pull that
No
up,
worries. No worries.
I don't know if I would say it's my favorite or not. I definitely
Mm.
do enjoy it, but my favorite game of all time is an
Of all
RPG.
games.
It's
Oh, okay.
not it is an RPG. It's not by them. Is the other? It's not by Square Enix.
Okay.
Interestingly enough, in my opinion, but it is. It's called Skies Arcadia, and I
Oh,
just
I
wanted to
heard of
get
that
ported
game.
on a different. Yeah, I love that game. Oh, there's the list. Okay.
I think Johnny was telling me
Final-
about that game that I should play it. Now it's two people that have
oh,
told me it's a
really?
great game, so I should definitely play
Yeah,
it. Skies of
it is
Arcadia. Let me get
fantastic.
it.
The only downside to it is they haven't ported it since the GameCube, and I just want them to port it because
Ah.
I'm pretty sure my copy is like, please, can I have some rest? It's like, no, I need to play another playthrough.
So I cannot play it unless I
Um,
have a GameCube. Oh, that's a shame.
not legally at the very least.
Okay,
No,
okay, gotcha. Skies of
it's like
Arcadia.
I definitely, yeah, I definitely try to do it legally. There's a possibility that they could come out with a port here soon. They've been doing more Skies Arcadia merchandise.
Okay.
So maybe we could see a Steam
I mean,
version.
we are in the decade of remakes. So if there's a time to
We are.
make them, it's that.
No remakes, no remakes, please. Just remasters.
Oh yeah.
So remakes can be good, and I'll get back into if
Yeah,
Final
yeah.
Fantasy is my favorite RPG in a second. Sorry, but the thing is with remakes, you typically don't have the same director, you don't have the same
Yeah,
team, so
right.
the art direction and the story goes off in a different way,
Yeah.
and it can be equally good, but it's not the same.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I'd rather they just go ahead and try to tell their own story instead of
Good
do a
point.
remake, because it's
Yeah,
like,
that's a good point.
especially with Final Fantasy VII at this point,
Hmm.
it went from a
It's a very
40-hour
different
game
thing,
to a,
yeah.
it's very different, and it went from 40 hours with one to 120 and $180 because now you have to buy it 3 times. Like, no, please no.
Yeah, I mean it's like kind
Um,
of when like business merges with creativity. So it's like it's kind of it's like what you're saying. They're giving a prompt to a new team with a new creation, and they just basically
Yeah.
saying make a new game that is using Final Fantasy VII as the I guess the resource
Exactly,
or the feeding ground. But it's not Final Fantasy VII again. That's just kind of the play that they do.
yeah.
But it's like even just playing it, I can see how this is. I'm like I haven't played Final Fantasy VII, but I can
Right.
see that this is not what the game was because it cannot be. It's a completely different setup, completely different
Yeah.
way to do the combat. Like the graphic, it's like if they didn't make it different, it wouldn't be good. You know what I'm saying? Like you cannot make
Yeah.
it now 3D and have it like cinematic and have it like relevant to our times and still be the same exact game. It just so it's like
Right.
I see your point of like make a remaster.
Yeah.
But that would be exactly that probably from an executive
Yeah.
perspective. They're like, well, if they make a remaster, the only people that are gonna buy it are the people that play the original, and we want other
Possibly,
people to
that is
play.
true. Yeah.
Right. So they're like, we want other people to jump into the franchise, like people like me, right? And like all these
Right.
noobs. So it just and then the people that are fans are gonna buy it and then complain about it, but they bought it. So
That's true.
that's classic
Yeah, I mean,
corporate. That's
yeah.
corporate logic.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I'm definitely guilty of that. It's like, yeah, I'll buy it, then I'll complain about it. It's like, yeah, okay, fair enough.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
the type of
that is
logic
true.
corporate
It's-
beyond. Yeah, they're like, I mean, all we
Yeah.
want is for them to buy it. If they talk about it, even greater, because then people want to have an opinion
Yeah.
and play it as well. But
Yeah.
but
It's
yeah,
like,
no.
I definitely understand it, but it's like if they would offer both, I'd probably be better with it. Like a
Mhm.
port and a remake,
Nah, yeah.
I'd be content. It's like, okay, now we have both versions, and then you could even have people double dip. It's like, oh, this is how the remake plays, but now I can buy the original
Yeah.
port too and find out how that was originally. So it's like,
And
oh,
it kind
guys, come on.
it cannot be that hard, right? Like to just port it, right? Like if it's especially if it's OSA.
Sometimes, depending on the console, PS3 is pretty hard still to port, just because of how unique that console was, and that brings up something else I was
Interesting, I
gonna
didn't know.
bring up why I like remasters over remakes or ports, or remasters or ports over remakes.
Mhm.
Having to see how they had to deal with the console limitations and overcame that can be
Okay.
really interesting too, especially if it's something that's like late in the console, and just to see how far they could push that original console. It's fascinating.
But that's why
So-
I wonder why would it be hard if this game was made for a less capable console? Why would it be hard for them
Right.
to make it available in a more capable? Or is it because the framework completely is different? I guess it's my mind because I don't
The
know
fra-
how they works. Like what is it that
The framework, yeah.
yeah.
The framework can be completely different. Like going back to the PS3, like
Okay.
Demon Souls is one of my favorite games.
Okay.
I think that has a good story, and that's just how unique the architecture for the PS3 was. Makes it really hard to port games because it has 2 different things of RAM, if I remember correctly,
Okay.
and that was not heard of at the time. And that still just makes it weird. Like
Oh.
even games that were so PS3 was more powerful in the Xbox 360, but just because of how weird the architecture was, a lot of the ports ran worse. One of the most notorious companies releasing bad ports for the PS3 was Bethesda. So like the Fallout games, the Elder Scrolls games, they ran so much worse because at a certain point, just how they programmed it, the game would become too full, and then you'd have to restart the game every hour. Otherwise, it would become a stuttering mess. And it's just like certain nuances of consoles can make it really hard. Yeah, and like some of the graphics are specifically looking for that specific specific coding in that console that's not in the other consoles. So it's
Now I
sometimes-
understand a little bit better what
yeah.
you meant. I wasn't
Yeah.
connecting the dots when you're saying right that many times they're pushing the game to the limit of the console, which means it's not just a matter of like pressing the X arrows. That they mean that they're fitting the game Like the way it's
Yeah.
written, it's so fitted to how the machine is to take advantage of every
Yeah.
little crevice, right? So then to now take it out,
Exactly.
it needs a lot of refitting, right? Even if the console
Yeah.
that they're refitting it to is more powerful, it's not just it's not just like going like it's not a speedometer, right? It's like it just
Right.
how the
Yeah.
information is moving around, right? And if I see, that's very
Yeah.
interesting because it's like I haven't thought about it like that. And it's something that definitely I'll have to learn more as I develop in making more complicated games. So it's like it's like is you gotta take into consideration a lot of variables, not just the game and how you program. It's like the machine in which it's gonna run and how to take advantage of it. And it's like I was seeing an interview with I think the Whisper, the Window. You know the game, The Window. It's like an indie game which you're solving some like mysteries and stuff. Anyway, he's an indie
I
creator,
might.
right? Oh, okay. But I haven't played the game, but I was listening to an interview
Right.
with him, and he's started a new game, right? But he's writing his own engine, right? And he was talking in general how because now, well, first of all, this like everybody wants to make a game now. Oh, okay, sorry.
Do you mean The Witness?
Yeah, The Witness. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Because now that I know I know exactly who you're talking about now because he also made a platformer called Braid, and I like that one. Okay, I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
So that guy,
I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
He was talking about. I mean, first of all, like how everybody's making games now. I mean, not everybody, but like there's a lot of people that want to make games, but a lot of people that are making software. But he was talking about how like software now is like people are making terrible software because they have such powerful machines, they have such powerful computation that they're not being careful about being efficient. They don't have to do the things that exactly like what you were saying these game companies had to do to kind of pull the most out of the machine. So I think that it's, but I do like the idea of thinking because if you think of that, then you can make a game that performs really well on a poor machine. So you make it available for people that don't have like the crazy, GTR whatever graphics card.
Right.
So it's I think but it's like anything, it's like you gotta sacrifice some parts for others, and at what point you want to really be a perfectionist with a video game, which is such a crazy endeavor. But let me ask you something, because I'm a big fan of, again, I mean, there's also like I've watched a lot of movies. I'm a big fan of movies. So then games that are very cinematic, like catch my eye a lot. So it's like I also like the gameplay things. Like I see you're a Souls fan, and you also like RPG and stuff.
Yes.
But what is your stand on I guess like action RPGs or even just action games? Like I don't know, Uncharted, or I mean that wouldn't be action RPG, but like Uncharted or more an action RPG like God of War, the later saga, or what would you think of things like that? Like the more cinematic games. Do you play them? Do you?
Oh yeah, I play them. I'll typically go ahead and play them on a hard, at least normal, if not a harder difficulty.
Nice.
So I do like to go ahead and have a challenge. Just when you say that, that makes me think of like Metal Gear Solid is probably the biggest example of a cinematic, of a cinematic game, or like the Walking Dead Telltale games.
Yeah, or Alan Wake.
Alan Wake. Yeah, Alan Wake's another one. Yeah, it's like I like them, but I do want them to have enough gameplay that it actually feels like a game too, because it's like it can go ahead and not have enough. Like if you're just gonna go ahead and basically make a movie, just go ahead and release it as a movie. Honestly, it's like I'd rather the choices that I'm making here. It's like I press A for 5 seconds and then I get a movie. It's like obviously the games that I mentioned previously, I wouldn't say falls under that category. Maybe The Walking Dead does a little bit.
Yeah.
But I do still like that. And for The Walking Dead, your choices do matter. So that does affect things a little bit as well. So it's like, okay, that one I can understand a bit. But it's like, I'd probably have to say it depends.
It has to be well made.
It varies.
Like it has to be.
It has to be well made.
Yeah, I see.
Yes.
I mean, that's why it's like, what do you think, for example, of the new God of Wars? Because I found in there like a very strong.
So I was just gonna say I haven't played them. I've heard they're very good. I don't have much of it.
You don't have
this is gonna sound really weird.
No.
I just don't have an interest in God of War in particular, probably because of the PS2 games. Apparently, the original ending speaking of God of War, and I need to look more into this. Allegedly, the original ending for God of War 3 was supposed to be that Kratos converted to Christianity. Actually, so.
Oh, what?
Yeah, I would have been interested in that. It's like, that would have made me actually interested in God of War. It's like, but no, that obviously didn't happen. But I need, like, I've heard that reported a few times, and I need to go ahead and actually find some more. I don't know how either, but I need some more concrete proof, and I'd be curious about that. But I do like those types of games because it's like I know you said God of War, and I can't recommend this series for most Catholics, to be quite honest.
Oh.
I am pretty good with my urges. But like the Bayonetta series is very similar to God of War. But if you happen to have a struggle with Temptations, I can't recommend it at all.
Okay.
Like plain and simple.
Got
But
it.
it's also like one of those action games.
I
It's
have it. I
very
have it
similar
in
to
my
God of-
wish list because I follow some people and
Yeah.
they recommend it because the gameplay is amazing. But yeah,
Oh, the gameplay is amazing. The music is too. But it's like as I
yeah,
said,
it's
if
supposed to be
that is
right.
if that is
It's
a
like a
problem,
femme
I
fatale
can't
type of lady, right? Isn't she?
Yes, and I mean the weird thing. So to give even more context,
Mm-hmm.
Bayonetta is. This is going to sound weird out of context, but I'll go ahead and
I mean,
try to make
just-
it sound
yeah.
as
just
yeah.
let it out. It's all
So
good.
Bayonetta's outfits that she wears isn't
Uh-huh.
actually her outfits; it's her hair. And so the
Oh.
more that she attacks, the less so she attacks with her hair. The more that she attacks, the less outfit she wears. So she becomes more and
No
more.
way.
Yeah.
That
Like
is
this
the
is a real
mechanic.
thing. Yeah, that is a mechanic. So it's like once you're done doing a combo, her clothes will
She's
come
fully
back.
naked.
But
Oh.
yeah, it's like.
But
once
when you're in the middle of
yeah.
the combo, she's fully naked.
But you're in the middle of the combo, yeah. So it's kind of like how you were talking about Nier Automata earlier.
Yeah.
That's a game I'm also interested in. But your main character can lose a lot of her clothes there too. So it's like
what?
I haven't touched
I
that one
didn't
yet.
know that
yeah,
at all. Either of them.
yeah,
That is
yeah. I
wild.
think for
Uh-huh.
I think for Nier Automata, it's much more nuanced.
Okay.
I
sure.
think if I remember correctly, it's if you self-destruct, you lose more clothing.
I don't even know.
So,
I
as
mean, the
long as-
more I hear about this game, at first when I heard about Nier Automata, I mean, Bayonetta, I didn't even know that it was that complex. But I was like, oh, this is an intriguing
Yeah.
game. And then I heard a little bit more recently about how it changes so much. And I'm like, okay, and now I'm hearing this, like, what is this game about?
Yeah.
I'm like, I really want to play
I've heard it's I have heard it's a very good game, and I've been meaning to dive into it myself because another Catholic streamer,
Right.
I watched her play it, and it as I said, as long as you don't self implode, it seems like that mechanic isn't that big of a problem. So,
Got it.
but her name is Blue Soda, and she's a sweetheart as well.
Got it.
um,
Blue soda, okay.
but
I
it's
gotta get it.
Blue Soda, yeah. She spells it a specific way. I can share it with you later.
Yeah, please.
But yeah, basically that is. But I mean, so Nier Automata and Bayonetta are both made by the same company, Platinum. So that does go ahead and make sense. Yeah, that makes sense why that happens. It doesn't mean I like it, but it's like okay. Yeah,
I mean, again, when you're saying this, it's like I see your reservations, but to me, it sounds like a really smart game mechanic. Leaving aside whether it's beneficial on a moral standpoint,
Right.
But I'm saying it's really smart that as if you're making a game and you don't care about those things, it's like you making the guy trying to get to the highest combo. But even the fact that when you finish the combo, the clothes come back, it's almost like an incentive.
Yeah.
But it's moving so quickly that you cannot even pay attention to it. So it's like, I don't know. From an engineering perspective, I think it's pretty. From a design perspective, it's pretty genius. And I've heard Platinum Games are really good at designing combat. But yeah, I see your reservations about playing, especially playing on stream and stuff. But yeah, I mean, I'm on the camp of like, I think you just gotta. I mean, you gotta be careful, but especially if you're trying to craft or be better at the craft, it's like you gotta kind of understand if it's well made and and what the purpose is. Like I think like the idea of pornography in the sense of any kind, violent pornography or just like sexual pornography, like the idea of watching something for nothing else but an urge. That there's no artistic quality to it. It's like saying, just because somebody's naked, it doesn't make it pornography. So like the Sistine Chapel, they're naked. So it's kind of like it's what is the purpose of things. So again, I don't know exactly. I'm not trying to claim here that Bayonetta is like the Sistine Chapel of video games. But what I'm saying is like if it's done right, and that's like something that you could call it maybe not like a mechanic that didn't need to be there, or maybe was necessary. And it plays into the whole story of who Bayonetta is. But again, to me, it's more like, if the game is really good and is made by a guy who just wants to make it that way, I'll still play. I just will be able to make the nuances. I'm not gonna recommend it to a kid who cannot make his own kind of or I'm not gonna put it in front of a kid because they gotta find those nuances. But I think like that type of at least I move away from that type of censorship. Like for example, even just reading, like reading books from you could say I'm not gonna read Nietzsche because he's a nihilist, and it's like when he says it's completely anti-Christian. But it's like, why not? I mean, not that I've read Nietzsche, but I'm saying it's like reading it. It's not like, I feel like if you read it, it's not gonna really hurt you in the sense like if you it's when you follow it blindly, when you don't try to examine it in that sense, because it's kind of like not wanting to be around sinners or not wanting to be around people that are demon possessed or something like that. And in that sense, that
Right.
gives them more power, or like it also kind of leads them towards that road. But anyway, I don't know if. But yeah, sorry.
No, as I said, that all makes sense because like I haven't read Nietzsche either. I have kind of wanted to because I have heard some of the stuff he discusses. Basically, when he's not talking about God, he does sometimes have points. But even then, as you were saying, we still need to go ahead and see what he says about God,
right?
So we can go ahead and evaluate and refute it and talk to other people about it because of just how much it is addressed. And that's true for Bayonetta as well. I'd agree because it's like it is. I've released. I work for Catholic Game Reviews. I put out
nice.
a review of two Bayonetta games.
Okay.
But you're right. It's like as long as it's not a temptation for you, I think somebody could play it. But it's just I have to throw the caveat, especially as somebody that.
I think it's good that you express it that way because it's like saying like you know it's like a doctor can open up a guy but that doesn't mean it's like anybody should just be there watching a guy being opened up and the guy got it out.
Right.
It's just again goes back to what are you doing it for? If you're doing an analytical standpoint, like you're doing a review, or if you're interested in how game mechanics work and you know that Bayonetta is great at that, then you can kind of put the armor on or whatever, play the game. But
absolutely, yeah.
But yeah, exactly. I appreciate you making that caveat. I wasn't trying to speak against it. It's more like, like I reflect on what you're saying, and I'm like, yeah, I think that's important to keep in mind. But I am into, like when you said that, I'm like, I'm interested in playing it to see how the mechanic plays out, not because I'm interested in seeing this virtual character naked. So it's like that.
Absolutely,
it's like there's easier ways to get around it if that really is your goal. Than playing the whole game and turning it to a 60 combo. Saying it's like,
absolutely. So, no, I agree with that. It's just like it's just something I like to point out because it's like you're right. There's much easier ways, and I just
I wasn't trying to correct that at all. I was just speaking on it. But
especially as some go ahead, sorry.
No.
I was gonna say, especially as somebody that did have a porn addiction.
Same.
I just like to go ahead and have that caveat because it's like it's different. It's person by person, and I do want to go ahead and just make sure. So I know how hard it is because it's like I would still say I haven't looked at it in almost 9 years at this point, at least not intentionally. It's hard not to on the internet because it's basically in your face no matter where you are. But the intention behind it. But basically, it's like I still technically say I am just because, like with Alcoholics Anonymous, it's real easy to fall off the horse, and that's why I will probably never consider myself otherwise. Because it's like if I go ahead and consider myself stronger than that for a moment, I probably I can make that mistake way too easily.
Yeah. So and I think that in general is the point of like. Why, like, because when I hear from people, it's like, why Catholics always beat themselves so hard? It's not that we beat ourselves so hard, it's that we just constantly reminding ourselves that we are sinners, not in the sense that we're condemned, but in the sense that we're weak.
Right.
Like, that's the point of reminding ourselves that we're sinners. It's not like, oh, I'm a sinner and I'm going to go to hell unless just God. It's no, it's like we're saying the opposite, that you're saved, that Christ came, that you're saved, that you don't have to worry, that as long as you just stay close to God, like, But the being like I reminded to be a sinner is like what you're saying. Like I can relate to that not only on the point of pornography but on many other like aspects of my human weakness, which is like if you don't remind yourself of your weakness, if you don't remind yourself that by yourself, and if you're not guarding yourself, like if you're not watchful, the line is there to each you, like it says in the letters. It's exactly like that. Like, and it's precisely the people that are like arrogant enough to say like, "Whoa, that thinking like I'm a sinner just brings me down." Then they fall and they make mistakes. I mean, and I'm not saying because it's them; it's because it's been me too. It's like you gotta watch yourself for not being angry at the slightest thing. You gotta watch yourself for not being lazy. You gotta watch yourself for not being gladness. You gotta watch yourself for not being lustful. And it's not in itself. It's like, and it gets easier in the sense because you rely more on Christ and you offer it up. And it's like, that's the beauty of it too, I think. And I don't know if you can speak to that from your experience overcoming the addiction, any of the temptations. It's like, what has helped me is like, I remember when I was trying to overcome that temptation specifically and other problems. Hey, how's it going, Kisun? In which it was me trying to fight it, right? Like trying to be stronger than the devil, I guess, in that sense. And losing and then feeling defeated and feeling ashamed. But what I learned was like, if I stop trying to fight it and I just let God fight it and be like, hey, I'm weak. I don't know how to do this. Can you help me? From my experience, it has helped me a lot. But can you speak to, if you want to how you came to the position of overcoming that addiction or overcoming any other temptations or how you've improved in your spiritual life in that sense?
Yeah, no, that's definitely something I can talk about. And I will definitely start off with just continuing that thought, having the sacrament of confession is an absolute blessing, because
Oh,
you're right.
100%. Yep.
It's not that we need to go ahead and beat ourselves up about it. I mean, maybe we beat ourselves up about when we do sin for a little bit, but then we go to confession. We go ahead, we strive to overcome. We keep drawing closer to God. We don't stay where we are. We know that we might make the same mistakes again, but God will go ahead and forgive us, and we need to keep striving to do better. And that's a big part, I would say, for my story about how I stopped looking at pornography. I stopped looking at pornography right when I started reverting back to the Catholic faith, because I was definitely more of a cafeteria Catholic for the first 25 years of my life, I would say, because my mom is a cafeteria Catholic, my dad is agnostic.
Wow, that's so similar to my life. Except my mom, I guess, could be a little bit. But it's my father is agnostic. Well, he's even atheist in a sense. But he would go to church with my mother because my mother has strong faith. And up to pretty much 25 years old, when I was in New York, I was like, I guess I don't know what you refer to cafeteria, but it's like I believed it intellectually, but I didn't really believe it. Like I didn't change my life about it. But anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just found the correlation so astounding. But yeah, sorry, keep going.
That's fair. No, that's fine. We can definitely talk more about that. I guess that's a good clarifier, though, since not everybody may know what a cafeteria Catholic is. A cafeteria Catholic is kind of like how you go to let's say you go to a buffet. You go ahead and pick and choose what you want at the buffet. Kind of with the cafeteria Catholic. You don't follow all the teachings. So a cafeteria Catholic. That's definitely what it is for my mom. Don't get me wrong. I love both my parents to pieces, but it's definitely true. But I was definitely not really brought up in the faith side from don't do bad things. I think, if I remember correctly, the only thing my mom told me was don't have sex till I'm 30. So she really was not very good. And that I don't know if that's a problem for Spain, but I know that a big problem for America at the moment, and I hope that's getting better, is we don't have catechism at home. A lot of people expect when you go to Catholic school, I didn't go to Catholic school, but like faith formation, that you'll learn everything you need there, and that's not going to happen. I can definitely attest that's not going to happen. You have to live it at home too. You have to go ahead and learn. You have to go ahead and teach yourself. You have to grow in the faith, because otherwise it's not going to happen. Especially because it's like if your kids don't see you practicing what you preach, it's not going to happen. They're just going to go ahead and either, best case scenario with me, I had faith in Christ, no idea what anything meant really. I didn't even know what a deacon was. I didn't know about the real presence of Christ, really. I basically knew nothing. There was not much that I knew until 9 years ago, where I did go ahead and start coming back into the faith, which I'm very glad to God for that I did. And getting back to that, as I did go ahead, the main thing for me, probably, aside from actually getting closer to God, praying the rosary, and trying to draw closer to God, the main thing for me was probably understanding the reason why I looked at pornography and having to go ahead and stop that, because a lot of it is, for me at the very least, how a lot of the world is hedonistic. We have a lot of please yourself. One second. No worries. No, sorry. Yeah, my son was coming downstairs. Like, nope, not right now. But
not right now.
Not right now. Very hedonistic, very about pleasing yourself, and it doesn't really matter who you hurt in order to get there. And
it almost is like you have the right. You have the right to hurt other people.
Yeah. Absolutely. And as I said, that's a big problem with a lot of our culture at the moment, and it's definitely something that I still need to be careful about, because it's very easy to fall into. It's very easy to fall into, especially it's like when you work with everybody. But I will say, like, having a support group was exponentially helpful in order to overcome that, as well as a book by Matt Fradd called The Porn Myth helped me go ahead and come to a better understanding of that as well. Because it's like, as I was saying, basically, for the most part, people are thinking about how they can please themselves for the littlest amount of effort. And that's because it's like, if you can just go ahead and do what you want when you want, what's to stop you? And that's definitely what my thinking was, because it's like, I probably was doing it, I want to say 4 or 5. It might have been more times than that a day, where to the point where I'd even do it at work. And not saying that's a good thing, obviously, but it's like it had just become such a
Yeah.
problem that I was married to my wife at the time, where it's like it definitely was affecting our marriage as well.
Right.
How, and she didn't even know I was looking as
No,
much as
yeah,
I
yeah,
did at the time. So because it's like it's my dirty little secret, and it's like I don't want to go ahead and tell anybody about it, but it's like yeah, it's definitely
yeah.
something that was there, and it's normalized so much, even though it really shouldn't be. But it is
Yep,
what it
yep.
is.
I mean,
It-
and I've been in a similar position too. And I mean, I think the thing is like so many people probably are, and they are
yeah,
because what you say is so common. It's like they're the ones that normalize it and the ones that are more ashamed like of it. But
yeah,
whatever the case is, it's in either case it's a slavery to it. And I see
it is.
and I see it in myself too. It's like, and one thing that like I guess helped me. I mean, what really helped me is like what you're saying, really, which is being close to God, the rosary, and all these things that it's not like they're
Yeah,
magic, but it's like they get you closer to God. They make a positive
yeah,
change. Instead of you trying to suppress something, you are supplanting it with something better. But and then understanding the reason and stuff. But one thing that like I always found fascinating, or not fascinating, but like that it kind of clicked with me is like if I was watching this live, you know what I'm saying? It's like it's so much worse. It's like just because I'm watching it through a screen doesn't really change much of what I'm doing. You know what
yeah.
I'm saying? I'm just
No,
watching
yeah,
this and I'm there like, what am I doing? You know what I'm saying? Like, what is this? Like, what am I really accomplishing here? If not, like exactly, it's like what I'm doing is basically because there's a virtual. It's like me saying that me talking to you right here is not real because it's through a screen.
right,
But
right, exactly.
it's
Yeah,
exactly the same, and it's like that kind of this clicks that we do in our current society about things that just don't fit what we want. Like some, and again,
yeah,
I mean, I don't know how you stand in this on abortion and stuff, but I mean, I suppose anyway. What I'm trying to say is that I've talked to some people that are Catholic, and they kind of do a little like triple backflip to kind of justify it. And it's kind of the same like you could do with pornography. It's like, no, I'm not cheating, or I'm not doing, something that is lustful.
right,
This is just entertainment. But it's like, but if you were
right.
doing this in person right there, then it's also entertainment. It's like, where do you draw the line?
Absolutely. Yeah,
And it's like, if you look at it in clear cut things, like with logic, like it's not some arbitrary thing. It's just it all kind of falls on like sin leads you
yeah,
towards perdition, not for some arbitrary reason, but because it's the world. It's the bad things in the world just
yeah.
in an action. But yeah, so
Absolutely, and I think that's something we do need to realize because it's very real, honestly. And it's another thing I was thinking about. At least for me, it definitely went ahead and made it so my mind was technically. So basically, when I started looking,
mhm.
it stagnated my growth. I would say my mind growth.
Mm,
Like you don't realize just how much of an addiction it is, and
right.
I was definitely looking. By the time I'd stopped looking at it, I was 25. I was definitely looking at people that I should not have been. We'll put it that way. Just because of how much it gets normal that you just look at it and you just think it's okay, and then you just push for more and more because it's like, well, if this is okay, why isn't other stuff
Right,
okay?
exactly. Yeah,
And
slippery
yeah,
slope.
and we need to have much like with abortion, as you were saying earlier. We
Mhm.
need to have a better understanding. We need to have more science and research because obviously the faith for us
Yeah.
is absolutely fantastic. We need it, and it is critical. But in order to get those people that aren't as
Right.
more faith filled or more not understanding, we need to have a better understanding of it both psychologically and
Hmm.
scientifically.
Yep.
Because if people don't happen to see the reason how it's affecting them, they
Yeah.
won't want to listen.
A hundred
And
percent.
that's
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and that's the big key here, I would probably say, because it's like we have to go ahead and give them a little bit at a time so as to go ahead and help them. It can take years or even longer than that, decades,
Yeah.
but it's something. Keep working away at it. Have faith in God and keep asking for God's help and patience because we do
Yeah.
need patience a lot of the time too.
Yeah. It is a journey that you just gotta get started on. But I think I
Yeah,
suppose that's kind of what Matt Fradd did with the Porn Myth book, kind of like
yeah,
kind of try to explain it like in a more
yeah,
rationalized way. Yeah, I think it's important to do that because it's like, I mean, at the end of the day, if somebody doesn't want to hear it, they don't want to hear it. Like they just gotta get to. I mean,
yeah,
it's kind of, to me, it's like a battle that is like it's like a person that you see and they're gonna go down this road and they're gonna eventually find out that it didn't lead to a good place. So you want to avoid they do, but it's
yeah,
like, but you cannot, the same way God doesn't, stop us in the sense like we have our freedom, they have their freedom too. It's just kind of in the same way God feels about us sinning and moving away is how you start to feel when you move closer to God about other people, which is
mm,
what I can see how it can be off-putting because it would I was even in that position. I mean, there's people that are, like, were way further away from the faith that would be even more off put by that. But like I
Mhm.
remember, like, the classic, just being like, like, just being like, why do these people come here trying to tell me what to do? It's not that. It's like the people that were
Mhm.
actually concerned, because then there's the other ones, the Puritans and whatever. But the ones that are
Mhm.
actually concerned about you, they really just care for
Yeah.
you when they're trying to tell you. But I remember being in that position and be like, how it's not really effective if it's not done like what you're saying, with not only just
Yeah.
an empathy, but like a trying to help them get there, like, so that it's them that they get there. It's them that they can find an understanding of, oh, okay, this road leads me to perdition. It's not just because this person is telling me. It's not just because God tells me in the Bible, which if I don't trust in it, it's like you kind of just implant that trust all of a sudden. It's like you gotta kind of convince people, or like, not I mean, convince, I guess, but it's in the sense of charm, I guess. But charm is not the appropriate word, but kind of show them something to fall in love with, that they can themselves make the decision to trust a little bit, and then they themselves will see, okay, this is better than the road I was taking before.
Mhm.
That's kind of what I'm trying to express with that. And that's why I appreciate people that do work like what you're saying with this guy Matt Pratt, or what you're proposing
Yeah.
in all these areas that are difficult for other people to see. Is that it's not, it
Mhm.
goes back to what we were talking about earlier with the video games. You cannot be making the game for yourself. If I just say you're a
Right.
bad person because you believe in abortion, you're a bad person because you watch pornography, you're not helping them. You're just
Right.
basically telling yourself that you're the righteous guy. So
Right.
it's that delicate balance. But yeah, I wonder sometimes,
Yeah.
I mean, I have a hard time approaching it. And I want to ask you this too, and it's not specifically related to this, but it reminds me, because this is something that, as a guy that I eventually want to have a family, but I have
Sure.
no idea, because I don't have a family. I don't know what it is to have a child. But I think of something that, like, I remember, because when I was younger, right, I had a pretty tough relationship with my father. Not pretty tough, it's just like I didn't get along with my father.
Sure.
You know, saying, like, I had a pretty distant relationship
Sure.
with him. I didn't trust him, and I just didn't want to talk to him or anything. And I always felt like he didn't understand me. I don't know, whatever. And now I am
Right. Yeah.
closer, right? But I remember thinking always, like, when I have a son, when I have a daughter, I'm gonna understand this. I'm gonna remember how this feels to feel this distant, and I'm gonna be closer, and I'm gonna be there and stuff. But now I'm getting older, right? And I'm like,
Right.
I'm seeing how easy it is for me to, or how easily I could forget
Yeah.
that when I am a father, not only it's already all this time that has passed, but I'll be so in the midst of taking care of things, of tasks, of
Mhm.
taking care of them, and then worried about what they're gonna do, where this, that I
Yeah.
might fall into the same things. So I wonder, for you as a father, have you experienced something like that, in which you see yourself being like, am I relating enough to the position of my child? And then beyond that, like, yeah, what have you encountered in your experience as a father
Mm.
that has changed you, from the perspective of, you were once a child, you were wrong, and you yourself knew that you got to make your own decisions, but now you're responsible for a person. Anyway, I don't even know how to ask the question, because I don't really know what I'm asking,
Mm.
because I'm not a
No,
father.
I understand.
So, but yeah.
I actually understand, because it's like that's
Awesome.
something that I do think about, because a lot of the time, pardon me,
All right, no worries.
I'd like to imagine that I don't go ahead and do the same mistakes my dad did, because you're right. I do typically go ahead and remember how that felt, and I would say that there has probably been a time or two where I have done the same mistakes my dad did, and it's hard not to fall into the parenting of how your parents did, because you're so used to it, obviously,
Mm.
having been raised that way for 18 years. But I do go ahead and try, and I typically, when I discipline my son, after he's calmed down, I'll go ahead and talk to him, explain to him the reason why,
Mm.
and help him to realize why we did that, and hope that we don't have to do it again. Because obviously, I don't want to have to punish him if he doesn't deserve it, because
Right, right.
that's not right. That's not fair. And the other thing I would probably say, obviously, pardon me,
Yeah, no
your kids are
worries.
going to be different than you were with your father. So while you do go ahead and remember that, raising them is not going to be the exact same way, obviously. So there's
Right.
going to be little nuances, little things about them that are different enough that you have to go ahead and remember. And I would probably say, at the end of the day, making sure that your wife, or if you're a female, your husband, are in a similar mindset to you, but can go ahead and play your double. So, like,
Mm.
if you have some areas that you're weak or strong at, and vice versa. You can go ahead and play off of each other to go ahead and help. Because I
Oh, that's
do
nice.
admit that I do admit I go ahead and get angry a little too easily. So I will go ahead and try to calm down, and because I don't want to be mean to my son. I love
Right,
him
right.
dearly, and I hope he knows that. But it's like I definitely do know that my temper does sometimes get the best of me, and I definitely working on that, not just for him, but for everybody in general, honestly, because it's
Now for
like
yourself, right? Too.
it's
Yeah, yeah.
and for myself too. Yes, exactly. Yeah, for so many people, honestly. So
Yeah, no, but it's like I think that's beautiful, and it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, how the key to it all is the understanding of our weakness, and like it's
yeah,
beautiful what you're saying about your wife and your relationship with her, and that you're so understanding of the fact that you need her in that respect, that you need that person that can complement your weakness in those moments. That it's like it doesn't mean that you just kind of putting the load on her, like you're saying you want to change this thing and you're changing them. It's like it's more
mhm.
like that doesn't mean that I still have those struggles, and there's gonna be a consequence to those struggles. So it's like if I can play with somebody else that can complement and help me with that, and I think
Yeah,
that's great, and I try to do that more in general, and I think that's the beauty too of Christianity and Catholicism, just Christ
mhm.
is the fact that by having Christ, that person that you can rely on, it gives you the courage to rely on other people as well, and to be
Absolutely.
like I'm not weak in the face. I mean, again, I am weak in the face of what my human condition, but I am not
Right,
forlorn, I guess. Like I am not alone. Like I'm
right,
not gonna be left to die in that sense. Like I am weak. If it wasn't for God, then yeah, I could have the nihilistic thought of like nobody's here to help me.
right.
Therefore, why should I care about whether my son is hurt that I'm angry, or whether I care that I hurt this
Yeah,
lady? It's like why should I care if nobody's helping me? But the moment Christ is helping you, even though you're a bad person, then you're like, okay, let me then try to be better for other
yeah,
people around me, and at the same time conscious that you're not, and that other people kind of have to, yeah, they have to put up with you, and but that is that Catholic guilt, I guess, that like people like to call it, which
yeah,
is it's not like a guilt, like, oh, it's more like you just feel responsible. You're like, there are people that love me, and the first one of them, God Himself, made man, and now it's like, what am I responding? You know what I'm saying? And what I'm responding is just these actions. But yeah, I mean,
absolutely. Yeah,
I think this is exactly the key that I was trying to that I was trying to drive at with all this. But yeah, I think I don't know. Maybe I mean it's like I feel just bad that we missed the beginning of the conversation. But oh, let me talk a little bit more too about Chesterton since we missed it earlier. Because it's I mean
sure.
do you know a little bit about, and also yeah, about say Maximilian, but because what I heard about, do you know a little bit about his personal life and stuff about Chesterton?
A little bit, yeah. As I say, I need to look into it more, but I do know bits and pieces.
Yeah, he apparently was like an alcoholic and stuff. He had those struggles
Yeah,
with alcohol, and it's like I find interesting that through history, like great Catholic, even saints and stuff, they had strong weaknesses. Like even I was learning about Saint Anthony at some point too, and it's like even though he's one of the great mystics and desert fathers and stuff, he had like a pretty strong struggle with lust in his own circumstances
yeah,
as well, right? So it's just interesting to me, and even if we look at the figures of the popes, right, and it's like some of the greatest popes in terms of what the changes they've made for the church and stuff, they also did pretty terrible stuff. Like for example,
right.
I didn't know this about Borgia, one of the popes. Actually, I think it's the only Spanish pope, and he's known for being like the guy that's like corrupt and stuff. But I didn't know to what
Hmm,
extent. Like
hmm.
he had a son, he had a couple of sons,
Yeah,
right? And he put one of them as a cardinal, and the kid was like not even
yeah,
18. But this is the same pope that called the Council of Trent, which is like that brought the counter Reformation, and he helped the church rebuild itself in the midst of all the problems that it had. So it's almost like God is able, like there's no good people or bad people, is what I see from that. So I guess what I wanted to ask you with that is, because at least for me, when I look at Chesterton or when I look at his work, that's what I see transpire. Not only in him, but in the work
mm,
of Father Brown and all these novels. It's like, yeah, and it doesn't show humanity as something that is good or bad. It just shows this nuance, right? So I guess like this fact that like bad people can do good things because there's no bad people, and that good people can do bad things because there's no good people. It's just a change in perspective, or what point or what they do. But I guess my question, if there really is a question in this, is yeah, what do you find in Chesterton that is intriguing to you?
I definitely do like his writing. He's very witty.
Yeah.
So that's probably one of the big things that I do really like about Chesterton, just the sheer amount of wit and just seeing some of his responses to. So I also know he wrote in newspapers during the day as
Mhm.
well. So he responded to other people in the newspaper, like other atheists that called him out. So then he'd go ahead and respond back with his wit. So that's definitely part of, and part of it probably is his, as you said, his alcoholism in a sense, but the fact that he didn't go ahead and let that control him,
Yeah.
he let that go ahead and kept pushing to be better. Because I would say that there is there I probably would say there is good people and bad people, honestly,
Oh.
but that doesn't mean that bad people are irredeemable. Because
Oh, okay, okay. I see what you
bad people can always come back. Because one example that I'm thinking of at the moment is Saint
mean.
Moses the Black, who was a
Mhm.
murderer and a thief, and then he did go ahead and give his life for Christ. But
Mm.
and then obviously even with the good people,
Yeah.
there can go ahead and be moments of weakness, such as with G.K. Chesterton or even with St. Augustine or other such examples. And the main difference I'd say between the two is actually looking to go ahead and better yourself.
Mm.
And the reason why you better yourself is probably the big distinction there. Because if you better yourself just because you think you need to be better, that probably isn't going to go ahead and get you as far as you should be. But if you're
Mm.
trying to go ahead and better yourself for humanity and as a whole for Christ, because obviously, when I say humanity, we want everybody to get to heaven.
Mhm.
So by bettering yourself and helping people understand and being as kind and loving and actually being as truthful as possible can go ahead and help people come to a better understanding. And even with the bad people, as you were saying for the Borgias, God can go ahead and let good come through even
Mm.
bad people,
Right.
and that has been proven time and time again. So it's just interesting to note all of these things here, all these nuances. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, yeah, no, 100%. But then exactly, it's like I do see your point of good people and bad people. I guess the reservation that I have towards that is that I wouldn't know how to qualify them because it's like, what could be a bad
Mm,
person becomes a good person. So it's like, what they a bad person before
yeah,
another now? Is there a change in identity and such and so? But then,
right.
and this is a good segue, I suppose. Then you see people like Saint Maximilian Kolbe, right? And then you're like,
Yes,
okay,
yes,
how can I not say that was a good person? You know what I'm saying? Like, how can I like
right,
say that?
right,
You know what I'm saying? Because it's like even the story, like from a very early age, he's like committing his life to martyrdom. Like it's just like how do you just
right,
not like? But yeah, but and then and I'm not saying he didn't have flaws. Obviously, he had to have them, even though I
right.
don't know of them. But but uh but yeah, it's like in some sense maybe yeah maybe in the sense like maybe I'm reconsidering the idea that it is more related to an identity than just an action because even the act of communion is the act of you taking at the identity of Christ and through that
Right.
identity doing better and having better actions.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so yeah, there is a point there. So speaking of Saint Maximilian Kolbe, why is that a character that attracted you? And how did you first learn
Oh,
about it?
okay. Yeah, we can definitely go into that.
Yes,
That
please.
would be because Saint Maximilian Kolbe is my confirmation saint.
Oh yes, yes, yes.
So yes, so back when I was choosing that, I know they said earlier my dad is agnostic, which is true.
Mhm.
But I was, as I said, I wasn't really brought up that strongly in the faith, unfortunately.
Mhm.
But my dad does still like reading stories about saints or just
Oh,
stories
nice.
about people in general.
Right.
And Saint Maximilian Kolbe was definitely one that he was interested in. I did give it a quick read over, not as much of a read over as I should have at the time.
Mm.
And I will say God works in mysterious ways, and God also works in funny ways. Because at the time, I really liked Yu-Gi-Oh. So the
Oh,
main
okay.
reason I chose Maximilian Kolbe is because one of the characters was called Maximilian Pegasus in Yu-Gi-Oh. So that was the main, yeah, that
I
was the
love that.
main connection to that, honestly. But as I said, God works in mysterious
Yeah.
ways, and it's like the more I've learned about Saint Maximilian Kolbe over the years, the more I'm super grateful because
Mhm.
he truly was an amazing man and a humble man and a loving man. But he was also a realistic man because it's like he did go ahead and see how things would work, but he still was willing to go ahead and
Yeah.
do sacrifices so he could go ahead and help people come to Christ, which is
Yeah.
something that we all need to think about, myself included, because it can be hard to do that sometimes, but it's definitely something we need to go ahead and push ourselves further, myself included, because I know that I'm obviously also human. I make mistakes, so
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's like that. The first time I heard about him, it's like, I guess, the more famous or the most flashy thing, which is his martyrdom. It's like this is the guy that
yeah,
at the concentration camp offered his life for another person. But it's not only that, bro. Sorry. But before that, he had been giving his life, his whole life. You know what I'm saying? Like
yeah,
he did the radio. He was doing that underground radio
hmm
for a while. Like it's just
hmm
like that's when you really like what I've come to appreciate more and more that I'm maturing. It's like it used to be for me. I mean, it used to be I didn't even pay attention to the Saints, but then it
right,
was like the flashy thing. It's like whoa, this guy got
right,
killed this way, or this lady got killed this way, or they did this thing, right? It's
right.
like whoa, saying I'm trying to think of the thing, of the names now, but like saying Lazarus or no, it was a whatever. Yeah, like the different saints with the different
Yeah,
crazy deaths and stuff. It's like, oh, this guy was crucified upside down. This guy was put on roasted on something. But then you
right.
start to learn that
Yeah,
that's just kind of like the climax of it all. But the sanctity of it, it's the life that they lead. You know what I'm saying? And like they
yeah,
can come from different points. I'm not saying, like, for example, Saint Augustine being a great example that it wasn't at the starting
right.
point. Like for like Saint Maximilian Kolbe's like from like an early childhood, he's already committed himself
Right.
to the Virgin Mary. But there are
Yes.
different
Yes.
ways, but they all are leading up to that point of death, which can be martyrdom or can be in bed, and that still is a
hmm
martyrdom because you don't know the suffering they go through. But
No.
the,
Yeah.
the the point that I'm trying to make is that I'm learning to appreciate that giving of life that is constant, that is not just that act at the end that you like. I give my life at the concentration camp. Is the giving your life day to day, which is the harder thing, right? To just stay
Yeah.
disciplined in that respect.
It is, and that's definitely one of the reasons I do really appreciate the saints and the Catholic Church in general. There's a quote I've heard before that I like. The Catholic Church isn't a museum of saints. It technically is, but move past that for a second. It's a hospital for sinners, which is true, because it's
Ah.
like we can go ahead, take all of these people that have gone ahead and made mistakes, and we can go ahead and through the mercy of God, go ahead and heal us, so we do draw closer to God, and so we can go ahead and make the right and proper decisions. Which once again, the way there isn't always easy, but just need to go ahead and keep picking ourselves back up and making sure we do keep trying to go ahead and do the right choice and make sure we encourage other people as well as we're doing it. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's like taking the medicine. I mean, the analogy of the
yeah,
hospital makes a lot of sense. It's like, yes, it is a
yeah,
hospital for the sinners, but if the sinner doesn't want to take the
yes,
medicine, it's quite hard
yeah,
for them to do anything about
it is, yeah,
it. so,
exactly,
so
exactly.
yeah, you just gotta keep going back and taking the medicine. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, and then so the channel, why did you? Because I found, I mean, I think it's great, and I love Saint Maximilian Kolbe. I'm trying to find the connection that when you started the Twitch channel and stuff, did it from the beginning? Was it related to Saint Maximilian Kolbe? Like, did you know what I'm saying? Did it have an evangelizing aspect to it from the beginning? Or was it more like just sharing a part of you and being the saint? That was your confirmation. Because he is also, the patron saint of journalists and, radio and stuff. So
Yes.
I wonder if that was part of. I guess my question really is: did Maximilian Kolbe drive you to do Twitch? Or you just wanted to do Twitch, and then Saint Maximilian Kolbe is just something that is part of your character that you were exposed in there.
It's probably just because I wanted to do Twitch, but there was
Right.
probably that small nuance of Saint Max, as you said, how Saint Maximilian Kolbe is a patron saint of journalism and pushing technology forward.
Mm-hmm.
So that probably does happen to be part of it. Because before this, I was on YouTube. I was going under the
Oh,
name of
nice.
Kevin the Catholic Gamer, and that honestly that just sounded so generic because it's like there's another guy that I haven't seen make videos in years. I wish he would on YouTube called That Catholic Gamer Dude, and it's just I wanted to go ahead and make it something more special.
Mm,
And Maximilian K, while I didn't understand the faith, as I've said, God was slowly
work.
working through me so I could have a better understanding.
Mm,
Because I have gone ahead and used Maximilian K for basically 15 years. Yeah, right
oh,
around,
wow.
no, closer to 20 years, closer to 20 years now for my screen name.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's definitely been something that has been underline, and I may not have happened to understand it, but that's basically been my screen name for about 20 years now.
Wow.
So it's
But was it
definitely
originally
yeah,
because of the Yu-Gi-Oh thing? I mean, not to take away from that,
but
because I think it all goes
partially.
together. But
So
yeah.
the other initials, the KA and then the
Uh-huh.
K, before and after Maximilian are just my initials, honestly.
Got
So
it.
It's a pretty simple name, but I still like it. I think it happens to work out, and it flows off the tongue well enough. Honestly,
Yeah, K, Maximilian K. But yeah,
yeah.
that's good stuff. All right, well, I don't want to keep you longer because I already made you talk for 20 minutes without anybody here. So,
I
but
understand.
yeah.
It's been a pleasure to be on. I very appreciate it. I'm looking forward to going ahead and seeing everybody else that you have on and catching more of your streams. So thank you.
Yeah, no, it was a pleasure. This was a very pleasant experience, just learning about how you view things, your experience with video games. I mean, just your experience with Final Fantasy in general, and then your journey in life and through your challenges, and how you see the faith and how it has changed you. It's always beautiful. I mean, this is why I like this show. I mean, I wish I was better at just finding people to talk to and being more organized with all of it. But this is what I like. It's like every time it's different. Everybody has a story, but what I like in common
Yeah,
that I find, and it's not to exclude anybody, but it's like those that have encountered Christ in their lives, it's like they have a freedom about them, to speak about everything
yeah,
in that sense. Like not everything is not just what is that called, gossip for gossip. No, it's like obviously it's not just talking about every single little thing because nobody seems, but just being open about things without fear and just being able
yes,
to express the parts of your life in general and just not being afraid to talk. That's what I really appreciate about people that have done that. And it's like, and there's other people that haven't met Christ and they're still very open for different reasons and stuff. But what
yeah,
I find that is remarkable is that being the common factor in all the people that have encountered Christ, that they have this freedom about them, and that's what I like to explore here. So I'm very appreciative of the fact that you took the time to do this, and I'm very thankful and thank you very much, Max.
of course. Of course,
And
yes. Once again, thank you for having me. If you're interested in other people, I can probably
oh, awesome.
find some for you as well, if you'd like that. Or as I say, I know
Yes.
there was a couple other topics you were interested in that we never got to. So if you ever want to, I'm willing to come back on as well. Not trying to force myself
Ah,
on
no,
for
no, no.
clarification.
This is
Just
great. No, no.
yeah,
Yes, yes, yes.
so just figure to clarify. So
Those two offers, I'll be taking you up on them. So
okay,
yeah, awesome.
of course,
And
yeah, not a problem at all.
awesome. If you're watching this on YouTube, by the way, I hope you liked it, and leave us a comment and let us know what you thought of this and your own experiences with any of the topics that we talked about. And if you like the video, press the like button. If you want to share it with people so other people can see it, you please go ahead. That would be great. And if you want to see more videos, subscribe. If you turn on the notifications, then you'll be able to know when new videos upload. And yeah, we try to do this every week, but most times it's on Thursday, sometimes it's different. But whatever the case, if you want to watch us live, you can always join us on Twitch as well. We also do our show on Mondays. We're just reading the Bible together, and just it's as much hanging out around the Bible than reading the Bible itself. So it's a fun way for us to get together and talk about God and how He talks to us through life and through His Word. And then during the weekdays, I'm just doing a Rosarium, which is the app I'm developing for praying the Rosary in a more interactive way. And on Fridays, we have Finance Friday, in which we explore financial topics and investments from that perspective. Because I used to work in investment banking, and I still appreciate the discipline, even though I don't want to do it professionally. And well, that's it. That's the wrap here. And thank you again, Max, for being here. And I hope everybody has a good night, and God bless you.
God bless. Thank you for having me again.